I'm Alex, 25 years old, a financial analyst who spent years clawing my way up from a family that never saw me as anything more than a paycheck. I've got dark hair I keep tied back, a sharp jawline from too much grinding my teeth, and a quiet confidence that comes from knowing I've built something for myself despite everything. I work with Nathan, a guy who owns half the city's skyline and doesn't waste time on people who don't earn it. My life's been a balancing act, keeping my head down, saving every dime, and pretending my family's demands didn't eat me alive. But that all changed on a dusty stretch of highway 5 hours from home, when my parents kicked me out of the car like I was trash they couldn't wait to dump. It was the moment everything flipped, and I went from their doormat to the one holding all the cards. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky a bruised orange when it happened. We'd been driving for hours, the air in the old minivan thick with the kind of silence that chokes you. My dad, Tom, had his hands locked on the wheel, knuckles white like he was strangling it. My mom, Linda, sat shotgun, arms crossed, her thin lips curled into that smirk she always wore when she thought she'd won. My sister Sophie sprawled in the back, scrolling her phone, sighing loudly every few minutes like the world owed her something. Me? I was squeezed in beside her, staring out the window, trying to tune out the tension that had been simmering since we left. This was supposed to be a family road trip, a rare break from the constant bickering, but it had turned sour fast. "Alex, get out," my mom said, her voice flat as the asphalt stretching out ahead. I didn't move at first. I just blinked, waiting for the punchline, some sign this was one of their twisted jokes, but she didn't flinch, and my dad didn't look back. Sophie let out a dramatic huff. "Oh my God, just get out already." I turned my head slow, locking eyes with my mom. "You're serious?" I asked, keeping my tone even, like I was asking about the weather. Her smirk widened. "Dead serious? You want to be selfish? Fine. Figure out how to get home." Selfish. That word hit me like a slap, but I didn't let it show. It all started 2 days ago, when Sophie blew through her latest paycheck, probably on another pair of sneakers she'd wear once, and came whining to me for my savings. She's 22, but acts like she's 12, always expecting me to bail her out. My parents backed her up, same as always. "She's your sister, Alex," my dad had barked. "Family helps family." Except it was never mutual. I'd been saying yes for years, handing over cash I'd scraped together from late nights at the office, watching my own dreams, travel, a place of my own, slip further away. This time, I said no. And now here we were, on the side of a highway, with them ready to ditch me over it. My dad finally twisted in his seat, his face red, eyes narrow, veins bulging at his temples like he was one shout away from popping. "You think you're too good for us? You're an adult. Get yourself home." Sophie giggled, a sharp little sound that grated on my nerves, slicing through the thick air like a rusty blade. My mom leaned forward, her voice dripping with smugness, each syllable polished to cut deep. "Let's see how independent you really are." They thought they had me cornered, stranded, helpless, maybe even crying for them to take me back. They thought I'd break, that I'd buckle under their words like I'd done 100 times before, handing over whatever they demanded just to keep the peace. But I didn't. I felt a calm settle over me, cool and steady, like the first deep breath after a storm tears through and leaves everything quiet. My chest loosened, my hands stopped trembling, and a strange electric clarity pulsed through me. I reached for my phone, fingers brushing the cracked case, and smiled. Not a big grin, just a small private one, a secret I wasn't ready to share yet. "Actually," I said, my voice smooth and low, "I already have a ride." Their faces froze like someone had hit pause on a movie. My mom's smirk twitched, a flicker of doubt cracking her mask of control. My dad's eyes widened, his mouth opening slightly, then clamping shut as he processed what I'd said. Sophie's giggle died in her throat, her phone slipping an inch in her sweaty hands as she stared at me, her brows knitting together in confusion. They didn't believe me. Not yet. They thought I was bluffing, that I'd pull some pathetic excuse to crawl back into their good graces. But then the sound came, a low, smooth purr rolling up behind us, cutting through the dusty stillness of the highway like a predator stalking prey. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I'd planned this, counted the minutes, and now it was here. A sleek black Bentley eased into view, its glossy curves catching the last rays of the sinking sun, throwing sharp glints of light that stung the eyes. It wasn't just a car, it was a slap in the face to the dented minivan we were sitting in, to the cheap, crumbling life they'd tried to chain me to. My mom's head whipped toward the window, her breath catching audibly, a small, choked sound she couldn't hide. My dad muttered something under his breath. "What the hell?" His voice rough with disbelief. Sophie leaned forward, pressing her face almost to the glass, her eyes wide. "No way," she whispered, like she couldn't decide if she was impressed or scared. The driver's door opened, and Nathan stepped out, all quiet power and sharp edges. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair swept back just so, and a suit, charcoal gray, tailored to perfection, that made him look like he'd walked off a magazine cover. His hazel eyes scanned the scene, taking in my family with a quick, cold flick before settling on me. He adjusted his cuffs, a small, deliberate move that said he wasn't fazed by any of this, then spoke. "You ready?" His voice was calm, steady, like he was picking me up from work instead of a highway showdown. I nodded, reaching for my duffel, a faded green thing I'd packed light, just enough to get by, because I'd learned years ago to always have an exit plan with this family. "Who the hell is this?" my mom snapped, her voice jumping an octave, sharp with a mix of fury and something unsteady, panic maybe, creeping in at the edges. I swung the bag over my shoulder, stepping out onto the gravel, feeling it crunch under my sneakers like tiny bones snapping. "A friend," I said, keeping it short, letting the word dangle there like bait. My dad leaned forward, his face a thundercloud, his voice a low growl. "What kind of friend?" Before I could answer, a new sound cut through. A loud, rattling engine, rough and out of place next to the Bentley's purr. A beat-up pickup truck screeched to a stop on the opposite shoulder, dust billowing around it like smoke. A guy climbed out, mid-30s, wiry, with a shaved head and a leather jacket that had seen better days. He had a cigarette dangling from his lips, and his eyes, dark, hard, locked onto our little scene like he'd been waiting for it. "This the party?" he called, his voice gravelly, a smirk tugging at his mouth as he flicked the cigarette to the ground and stomped it out. My stomach tightened. I didn't know him, but something about the way he stood, too casual, too confident, set my nerves on edge. Nathan glanced at him, his expression tightening just enough for me to notice, but he didn't move. "Who's this clown?" my dad barked, stepping halfway out of the van now, his chest puffed like he was ready to fight. The guy laughed, a harsh barking sound, and crossed his arms. "Name's Vince. Heard there was some family drama out here. Thought I'd see if anyone needed a lift, or a lesson." Vince. The name didn't ring any bells, but the way he said it, the way he looked at us, like he knew more than he was letting on, made my skin prickle. My mom's eyes darted between him and Nathan, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "We don't need anything from you," she said, her voice sharp but shaky. "This is private." Vince shrugged, leaning against his truck. "Sure it is. But when I see a fancy car like that," he nodded at the Bentley, "and a family tossing their kid to the curb, I get curious. What's the story, kid?" He looked at me, his smirk widening, daring me to spill. I didn't take the bait. "No story," I said, keeping my tone flat, my eyes steady on his. "Just leaving." Nathan stepped closer to me, his presence a quiet wall at my back. "We're done here," he said, his voice low, final, aimed at Vince more than my family. But my dad wasn't letting it go. "You think you can just walk away, Alex?" he shouted, slamming the van door now, his boots hitting the gravel hard. "With some rich asshole and this creep, you're not going anywhere until we settle this." Settle this. Like I owed them an explanation and negotiation after they dumped me like garbage. I turned to face him, feeling that calm inside me harden into something colder, sharper. "Settle what, Dad? You kicking me out because I wouldn't bankroll Sophie's shopping spree? I'm done settling." My voice didn't waver, and it felt good, damn good, to say it out loud. Sophie whined from the back seat. "That's not fair, Alex, you're so dramatic." But it was weak, a kid's tantrum against the storm brewing around us. Vince chuckled, a low, dark sound that made my mom flinch. "Sounds like a hell of a family," he said, pulling another cigarette from his pocket and lighting it with a flick of a match. "Bet there's more to it than that, though. Money trouble, maybe?" He blew out a plume of smoke, his eyes glinting with something dangerous, like he was fishing for a crack to pry open. My mom's face went pale, her hands freezing mid-fidget. My dad's jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. They knew something they didn't want this stranger sniffing around. Nathan's hand brushed my arm, a subtle signal. "Let's go," he said, quieter now, just for me. I nodded, but before I could move, Vince called out, "Hey, rich guy, your girl here's got guts. Shamer folks don't. Maybe I'll stick around, see what shakes loose. It wasn't a threat, not exactly, but it hung there, heavy and jagged, like a blade waiting to drop. Nathan didn't flinch. Do what you want, he said, opening the Bentley's door for me. But you're wasting your time. I slid into the seat, the leather cool against my skin, my pulse thudding in my ears. As Nathan climbed in and started the engine, I caught one last look at them. My mom's wide, frantic eyes, my dad's fists balled at his sides, Sophie shrinking back in her seat, and Vince leaning against his truck, watching us go with that damn smirk. The Bentley pulled away, smooth and fast, leaving them all in the dust. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Vince wasn't just some random drifter. He'd seen something in us, in them, and I needed to know what. The Bentley hummed along the highway, the world outside blurring into streaks of orange and gray as the sun dipped below the horizon. I sat there, my hands resting on my duffel, the cool leather of the seat pressing against my legs. My heart was still pounding, a steady thump-thump that echoed in my ears, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something hotter, something alive. Nathan kept his eyes on the road, one hand loose on the wheel, the other tapping lightly against his knee. He didn't push me to talk, and I was grateful for that. My mind was spinning, replaying every second of what just happened. My mom's faltering smirk, my dad's clenched fists, Sophie's wide eyes, and Vince, that smug stranger with his cigarette and his questions. Who was he? Some drifter with bad timing, or something worse? The way my mom's face drained of color when he mentioned money trouble, it stuck with me, a splinter under my skin I couldn't ignore. You're quiet, Nathan said finally, his voice cutting through the hum of the engine. I glanced at him, his profile sharp against the dimming light. Just thinking, I said, my fingers tightening around the strap of my bag. That guy, Vince, he wasn't random, was he? Nathan's lips twitched, not quite a smile, more like he'd been waiting for me to catch on. Probably not, he said. People like that don't show up on empty highways for no reason. You think he knows something? I nodded, slow, my gut twisting. My parents freaked when he said money trouble, like he hit a nerve. Nathan didn't respond right away. He just kept driving, the miles ticking by until we pulled off the highway into a small diner lot, neon sign flickering, gravel crunching under the tires. Let's eat, he said, killing the engine. You need a minute to breathe. I didn't argue. My stomach was knotted, but the idea of sitting still, of grounding myself, sounded good. We slid into a booth near the window, the vinyl seats creaking under us. A waitress, Jenny, her name tag said, dropped off menus and coffee without a word, her tired eyes barely registering us. I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into my palms, trying to steady the storm in my head. They've been hiding something, I said, staring into the black swirl of the coffee. I've felt it for years, the way they'd push me for money, guilt me into it, like it was life or death. I thought it was just Sophie's bullshit, but now... I trailed off, Vince's smirk flashing in my mind. Nathan leaned back, crossing his arms. You want me to look into it? He asked, his tone casual, but his eyes were sharp, locked on mine. I met his gaze, my jaw tightening. Yeah. I need to know how deep this goes. He nodded, pulling out his phone and made a quick call. Low voice, clipped words, someone on the other end who didn't waste time. We ate in silence after that, greasy burgers, fries I barely tasted, until his phone buzzed an hour later. He skimmed it, then slid it across the table to me. Take a look. It was an email from one of his guys. Financial records, bank statements, loan documents. My hands shook as I scrolled, each line a punch to the gut. Credit cards maxed out, tens of thousands gone. Unpaid loans stacking up like a house of cards ready to crash. A second mortgage on the house they never mentioned. And then, there it was, a loan in my name, $20,000, signed 2 years ago with a signature that wasn't mine. Fraud, my own parents had stolen from me. I felt sick, bile rising in my throat, but I swallowed it down. My chest burned, a raw, jagged ache that spread to my fingertips. They used me, I said, my voice barely a whisper, trembling with fury. Nathan didn't flinch. They did, he said, matter of fact. And they're drowning. That's why they needed your savings, to keep the sharks off their backs. Sharks. The word clicked, and Vince's face swam back into focus, his hard eyes, his too knowing grin. You think he's one of them? I asked. Nathan shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe he's just a vulture circling the corpse. Either way, you've got leverage now. Leverage. The idea sparked something in me, a dark, hungry thing that curled around my anger and fed it. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make them pay. What do I do? I asked, my voice steadier now, edged with purpose. Nathan's smirk returned, slow and wicked. First, we lock it down, freeze your credit, report the fraud. Then we turn the screws. You've got options, Alex. How far do you want to go? I didn't hesitate. All the way, I said, and I meant it. They'd treated me like nothing my whole life. Used me, lied to me, tossed me aside when I stopped playing along. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I was back at Nathan's penthouse, a glass-walled fortress overlooking the city. My phone had been blowing up. My dad's angry rants, my mom's sob stories. But I ignored them, letting them pile up like unread mail. Nathan's team moved fast. By noon, my credit was frozen. No more loans or cards could be opened in my name. I filed a police report, handed over every damning document, proof my parents had forged my signature, proof they'd built their lives on my back. It felt good, clean, like scrubbing dirt off my hands after years of grime. Then she showed up. Riley, a freelance journalist with wild red hair and a leather jacket that smelled faintly of smoke. Nathan let her in, and she dropped a recorder on the coffee table like it was a grenade. "Heard you've got a story," she said, her green eyes glinting with curiosity. "I've been tracking a loan shark ring. Big players, nasty debts. Your folks are on my radar." I stared at her, my pulse kicking up. "You know about them?" She nodded. "Linda and Tom owe Eddie Claus, a guy who doesn't mess around. Word is they've been dodging him, using your name to buy time. I want to break the story, but I need your help. Eddie." The name landed like a brick, and Vince's face clicked into place. He wasn't random. He was connected, maybe Eddie's eyes on the ground. "What do you need from me?" I asked, leaning forward. Riley grinned. "Testimony, proof. Give me the docs and I'll tie it all together. Expose them, Eddie, the whole mess." Nathan cut in. "You sure about this, Alex? Once it's out, there's no going back." I didn't blink. "I'm sure," I said. "They don't get to walk away from this." 2 days later, I met Eddie myself. Riley set it up, a grimy warehouse on the edge of town, the air thick with oil and rust. He was big, broad, with a shaved head and scars crisscrossing his knuckles. Vince was there too, leaning against a stack of crates, smirking like he'd known I'd show up. "So you're the kid," Eddie said, his voice a low rumble, sizing me up. "Your folks owe me 50 grand. Promised your money'd cover it." I stood tall, my nerves buzzing but my face blank. "They lied," I said. "They stole from me too. But I've got proof, enough to bury them. You want your money? Help me take it from them." Eddie laughed, a harsh grating sound, and glanced at Vince. "She's got balls," he said. "All right, kid, I'll play. But if this goes south, you're on my list too." I nodded, my stomach twisting but my resolve iron. Riley recorded it all, her camera hidden, catching every word. The trap was set. A week later, it hit. Riley's article dropped online. "Family fraud ring exposed. Parents prey on daughter, dodge loan shark debts." The documents were public, my name cleared, their crimes laid bare. The police moved in, seizing the house, freezing their accounts. My phone rang off the hook, my mom's voice frantic, sobbing. "Alex, they're taking everything. Sophie's a wreck, your dad's gone. What did you do?" I let her ramble, her panic washing over me like static. "You did this," I said finally, my voice cold, steady. "You used me. Now you're done." I hung up, her cries cut off mid-sentence, and felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just a quiet, satisfying emptiness. Nathan threw a small party that night, me, him, Riley, a few of his team, champagne popping on his balcony. "To freedom," he toasted, clinking my glass. I smiled, a real one this time, the city lights sprawling below us. Riley leaned in, her voice low. "Eddie's still out there. He got his cut from your folks' accounts, but he's not happy. Watch your back." I nodded, the warning settling in, but it didn't dim the moment. I'd won. My parents were broke, homeless, Sophie scrambling, my dad on the run from Eddie's wrath. They'd lost everything, and I was finally free. But it's not over, not quite. Eddie's shadow lingers, a loose end I can't tie up yet. I learned something through all this. Family isn't blood, it's trust, and when that's gone, you build your own. My parents thought they could break me, but they only made me stronger. So here's the question. What would you do if the people who raised you turned on you? How far would you go to take back what's yours? Tell me in the comments because I'm not done fighting, and I want to know what you'd fight for too.